And now I'd like to take the chance to welcome back Luciane, Else, Johanna, and Erik to the stage and join Mats and I for a quick chat and discussion. And this is also an opportunity for any questions from the audience, for questions or ideas or comments that you have had during the presentations this morning. So we're going to use the same funky foam box to ask your questions. So just throw up your hand if you have a question, and Johannes will deliver the orange box to you. Well, I was certainly fascinated by the discussions and presentations that we had this morning in various regards. And maybe we can start from the last presentations. You've really captured, Mats, the interconnectedness of the different issues. That you mentioned at the end, there is no universal solution to these problems, but you've emphasized all of the potential triggers and causes and interrelatedness of the drivers of segregation. When you're talking quickly about area-based solutions, can you expand a little bit on what you mean by area-based solutions that you've seen perhaps having some positive impacts in our some of our most segregated areas in Finland, but also in the Nordic region?
Yeah, I would think that, as mentioned, like many of the more structural issues, unemployment, if it's connected to global labor market restructuring, that's not something that you can solve locally in a neighborhood. But if you have a neighborhood where, for example, the housing requires upgrading, if you have a built environment which is not perceived as attractive by the residents who live in a neighborhood, if it's disconnected to the surrounding city, if you have poor means of transport and mobility solutions to access other parts of the city, then it will also have a negative effect on people potentially selecting these types of areas to live in. So I think that I maybe talked a bit about the limitations of these types of efforts, but I think that what we heard, for example, in the NORDGREEN project is that I think that we need a combination of both these measures that address the neighborhoods where you have a concentration of different types of challenges. They can be ones that are associated with the built environment, or then could be connected to school segregation as well. So that's my take on this, that we need both these area-based, but also we also need to acknowledge that we also must address the underlying causes, because otherwise we will only address the symptoms of segregation.
Yeah. Some of so you talk about kind of the structural issues that are driving segregation, and also kind of then these area-based solutions that can be implemented on a local level. Erik, in Norway, is this an issue that is being dealt with nationally in your organization, your ministry, to treat or deal with and try to maybe work with some of both the structural, but also maybe some of these area-based opportunities to help mitigate segregation in Norway?
Yes, because we see that the individual measures are not enough. They are the foundation, the basis. But in some of our areas, let's say, as an example, there are some dwellings quite close to the main road. People living in these blocks, they don't actually intervene with the rest of the society. They want to live there for 2 or 3 or 4 years and then move on. So they don't know their neighbors, they don't care, and then we have to go in with area-based measures in addition to the individual measures, which could be tax reduction and all the types of measures we know. And then it turns out that this support from the state, even though it's not that much in money, it's quite important to support the local government, to show that the state, the government actually cares. And this coordination, the effort that we coordinate 6, 7, 8 ministries to support this area turns out to be quite important. So on Monday we are sending our minister to visit one of Else's districts so he can learn for himself what are the main features, what have we achieved here.
Great, good. That's great to hear. Maybe switching gears for a moment to the NORDGREEN project. Elsa, maybe I can start with you. You mentioned this process of incorporating evidence-based design into the developments and plans for developments that you have. Can you give any comments on your experiences so far in working in a research environment, in a research context in a project, and the opportunities maybe that, or challenges maybe that has brought for developing maybe new ways of thinking or new ideas into the planning process? How has that been for you in the NORDGREEN project, and is there any kind of takeaways that you might have for others, both good or bad?
It's been quite exciting and interesting to be challenged, to see, as I said, the things in a new way, the method. I know that we have to now find out how to present it to our colleagues so that they can use it as well. So it's not just 3, 4 of us that knows this good thing or method, how to do it. I hope we have covered some more objects or, to be told and then to catch up to do the right solution. Yeah, short answer.
But this aspect of sharing the knowledge with your colleagues, I think that is something that you captured in your presentation this morning, Johanna. The way in which you're trying to bring in this information through these surveys, but also make sure that it's getting used across not the silos maybe of planning, but the departments of planning anyways. How has this experience gone in reality? Like, is the information, is it being used across different departments? And are people getting aware of how to use the information and how to access it? How has it been in practice that you know of in Espoo?
I think we've done good progress, but of course there's still work to be done. I think the key lesson to be learned from this is that it's not enough to do a survey and publish a report, but it takes quite a lot of work afterwards to market the results within the organization and over again remind everyone that, hey, we have this data in place and this is how you can use it, and this is how it helps your work, especially to we did the survey on sort of the master planning or general planning level, and one key group of users of the data set are detailed planners. So we had to communicate between these two groups of planners that here we have some material that can help you in your detailed planning, and teach them how to use it.
So now you have switched jobs. You've recently gone to the city of Lahti.
To detailed planning.
To detailed planning.
Yes.
What can you say about that change and your awareness? Or I'm just trying to think about the institutionalization and the transferability of these lessons. Say that Espoo has been, certainly in the sense of having the largest public participation survey like this of its kind, certainly a pioneer. But what about the transferability and your experiences of possibly bringing some of these skills with you to Lahti?
Well, actually, it went the other way around, because I used to work for the city of Lahti 4 years ago already, and we already implemented this same idea on a smaller scale. We didn't have NORDGREEN funding in Lahti to facilitate the process, but we did this integration into the GIS system with similar data sets, smaller data sets in Lahti already. And then when I went to work for Espoo and we got this project funding and really good collaboration with Aalto's group, hello Maketa and Sana, then we joined forces again in Espoo, and city of Espoo has much better resources. It's a bigger city and can forward things much more. So we scaled it to Espoo context And now, of course, I can tell the story back in Lahti that it worked in Espoo, so let's keep doing it in Lahti as well.
Else, have you considered this type of the type of survey that was done in Espoo for using this type of solution in Norway? Can you maybe just give a Norwegian or at least a Stavanger take on this issue?
Yes, we did it in Kværnevik, one of the 3 areas that we're investing in. And I think that it's now been based or a basement for the development of that area. It was interesting to get this mapping feedback instead of just words.
Yeah.
I don't think we will do it in every project. I think it needs to have a big size, but it's quite useful.
Johanna, what would be some keys for success? If this type of tool is going to be used to get citizens' impressions of what they like about their area, what they don't like about their area, what they would like to have changed in their area, how do we make sure that we get 6,600 responses and 2,200 responses from children and youth? What are the success factors to turning it into a successful data gathering, a successful survey compared to a less successful one?
Well, joining forces with the leading research group in that field, of course, is key. With Marketa Kyttö's group, of course, that's key. Having so many responses from children and youth was a concerted effort at the city of Espoo. A colleague of mine in the planning unit, who has pedagogical training herself, designed a school package for teachers to use. So she designed the answering the survey lesson so that teachers could directly just take the package and do one lesson at school answering the survey. So she made it really easy for teachers to use at school. And that was the success that we had a ready package to give to the schools. And
so the children and youth was through the school system that the information was filled out.
Yes, so there was cross-sectoral collaboration there.
If I'm not mistaken, there's something like this in Norway as well, or at least there has been in terms of the citizen engagement in schools. So I think that this is maybe a good practice to certainly a key factor in your success.
Teachers are really busy people with their curriculum, so we needed to give them something that was ready and easy for them to use, and then they took it on.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Anna Karlsdotter.
Thank you. I think it's a very, very interesting project, and thank you for your presentations. I'm thinking about the democratic element, and you talked about the participatory approach, which is interesting, but I'm also thinking a little bit about how preoccupied you are in the project with sort of this ideology of taking back the city, of turning it away from this asphalt and concrete hell it is, to more democratic use of public spaces from below. Johanna, you talked about a very scientific, survey-based approach to this, but are you looking into more behavioral aspects of using city spaces?
Taking back the streets. Johanna, Else, Erik, what are we working on? How are we taking back the streets from the car?
We have the parking day. Try to convert parking areas. We have a street in Stavanger called Pedersen, where we have put out some parklets, table and benches. That is one way to do it. Or we have mobile wood we are trying to develop in Hillevåg at a square there to easily make it more green, and thereby in a short way telling the inhabitants what they can expect for the area to be like if we change it from gray to green.
Yeah. These types of tactical urbanism approaches to try and test before you implement something permanently is, I think, always a good measure. Johanna, and maybe then Erik?
Well, people's behavior is very difficult to influence, especially through planning, but I believe that the physical environment does have an indirect effect on how people behave. And in our survey, for example, we found out that people significantly map significantly more negative experiences in the built environments and significantly more positive experiences in the green environments. I think there is something to be done that our built environments are not so pleasant, to make them more pleasant, make them greener, and make people come out of the cars and walk and cycle on the streets when they are more comfortable for doing that.
Erik?
It seems like when we introduce, for instance, parking restrictions, people seem to think that cars have a natural space, and there are massive protests when these restrictions come. But after a couple of years, nobody wants to go back, and this is very interesting. You have to use force, you have to be strong, and after a couple of years, people really love the situation with fewer cars, less parked cars, and they use public transportation instead. So it works.
So Anna, we know that you're right. When we take the power away from the cars, it improves people's quality of life. It includes their feelings of health and well-being, and hopefully we have some solutions to start on our way with doing that. Is there another question? I see. Yes.
Yeah. Is this on? Yeah. First, thank you for all the presentations, very interesting. My question is related to the area-based interventions. I think there's a consensus that they are worthwhile, even though they can't fix all the structural issues. One of them being the threat of gentrification. And right now there is an increased focus on green gentrification, which is maybe an academic debate more than among practitioners. But since you are connecting these two in the NORDGREEN project, I was wondering if you have any reflections.
Just one moment. Did you say gray gentrification? Green gentrification.
Green gentrification as a growing research field.
Okay. Anybody here familiar with green gentrification?
Well, you can correct me, but I understand that like when you green, you can actually you increase the value, and then with this you actually put people away from this area. That's what you mean, right? In some sense.
So the basic philosophy of gentrification, but from a greening the urban environment perspective. Yeah. How do you see this, especially maybe Else and Johanna, to put you on the spot? Do you see this as a phenomenon that you have to acknowledge or deal with, at least in your context, in Stavanger or in Espoo or Lahti, from a local perspective?
I think that we put blue-green on the top in every solution that we do, or except also for the human being using the area. As also our green plan, it's a main topic for developing the city and make sure that you have greenery around. Mm-hmm. I hope that we will do it more in schools as well, so it's not just activity but also mentally well-being. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's an answer, but
I think that this is certainly a real phenomenon. We know gentrification is a real phenomenon, but especially these issues like, for instance, greening the streets and removing the cars from the streets. We can see, as you pointed out, Erik, an immediate or a year later, significantly positive impacts to the built environment. But we do have to be cautious on what the implications are for the local housing market in that area and affordability for homes in that area. That is certainly something that has to be kept in mind in this complex puzzle that is the planning and development process. Luciane, I think I might give you the final word here, if I can. You've been working to coordinate the NORDGREEN project. Again, working on this connection between health and well-being and green space. Where would you see potentially, if you wanted to take these ideas forward a little bit more, to further develop this work that you have done in the NORDGREEN context, where would you see as maybe the most likely areas of opportunity for future research, but also maybe research and city collaborations?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think like one of the findings in respect of this green gentrification also is that we find out, and we were discussing about this yesterday in a meeting just before I go to your question, is that we actually have like in the cities that we are working with, we have like a kind of 90% of the dwellers, they have access, more than 90%, they have like access in 300 meters like to a green area, being a green public area accessible for everyone and can be like from parks, cemeteries, or like squares or whatever it is. So this is very good. Yeah, this is a kind of, we can say like this is fantastic. But what I think we have to actually then also look very much on this is also like how to preserve and how to keep up in some sense like with these standards. And not leave like the urbanization put pressure and then also we lose. Nowadays, I guess we are having a little bit more. The green gentrification also comes perhaps because I think in the private sector, they are seeing like the value about living like close to a green area. And then it's something, but we have like to democratize as well like this public space. Coming to your question, like what could be the next thing? I think in NORDGREEN, we really want to pinpoint like what is the value that the green areas they can have for health and well-being, because there is a lot of literature out there that says that people feel much better, you release the stress if you go to a park or if you make like some kind of activity like in a green space. And I think then perhaps would be like to go a little bit in depth in that and look about like nature-based therapies, like how we can actually put forward like the role of green areas as a as an alternative treatment like for mental disorders. Mm-hmm. So I think this could be something. And I also would like to highlight that planners and like policymakers, and we have like a really big role in playing that. And that's where I think like NORDGREEN also like is a kind of a very good project. But I think would be more or less in that and like putting like as there is a lot of different therapies. We have like colleagues from SLU that works with that, that they prove that actually like care farms and forest bathing and other types of like, or even like accessible public green spaces in cities, they can have like this healing effect. But then how to put this like in the mainstream of like the health health planning, like to use this as actually as a therapy, this could be a very interesting thing to go forward.
Just imagine if we could steer some money towards green space development because it's seen as a cost-saving measure for healthcare. That would be quite an achievement, and we have people like you to thank, all of you to thank for helping pushing us in that direction. So, thank you very much, Erik, Mats, Luciane, Elsa, and Johanna. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.